In that last clip, you heard Rick reinforce the point he made about Daniel Bryan, who's now known as Bryan Danielson, and his body of work being Hall of Fame worthy. It garnered some controversy, to be sure. Now, speaking of controversy, Jim Cornette seems to be a magnet for it, as evidence from this clip where Rick and Jim talk about being in the middle of a riot.
You're the best.
Let's go back even before 1997, Jim. When was the first time you actually worked with Rick? Do you remember meeting Rick or your first working experience?
Oh, my God,
with him?
yes, 1984 in Louisiana for Mid-South. Well, actually, the first time I ever met him.
It was Tulsa, right, Jim?
Well, the first time I ever met you, you don't remember because it was in Memphis when you did the match with Lawler at the Channel 5 studio, and I was the photographer.
That's right. I forgot that. Yep. But I came, I helped, I was wrestling, Bill brought me in, and I was the only NWA champion that Bill ever used. And I walked in one night, and I got there a little bit late, and they were having a full-scale riot at the fairgrounds in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was the Midnight Express against rock and roll there, too, right, Jim?
Yep, yeah.
I mean, and I mean, that place was insanity. And I mean, Jim was right there swinging that tennis racket like... the cops back there don't care. The Oklahoma's a little different. Plus, the times have changed, but those guys had more heat every night. I mean, you guys sold out everywhere, right, Jim?
Well, in Tulsa, we actually had so many riots, so many shows in a row that they sent the Internal Affairs Department to investigate police brutality against the fans because one of them that they nightsticked was a highway patrolman's son.
Yeah, oh, wow.
And they ended up, we got the city police kicked out of doing the security at the wrestling matches. They brought in the county sheriff's department, and the first show they did that was a sold-out show at the fairgrounds, and one of the sheriffs got horse-collared by a folding chair that a fan swung at Nikolai Volkov on his way to the ring. So they were knocking out the cops with chairs.
Yeah. No, I know it was that. I said to myself, I've seen a lot of stuff over the years, you know. Because the South can be rowdy, too, but that Oklahoma, they were at the fairgrounds, and that was really a tough crowd to get through, and it was laid out wrong because it was hard to get with the... It was first of all, it was like a dirt floor, right, Jim?
Well, it was a rodeo building, so the floor was exceptionally big, and said whether they had the dirt or just the cattle chute or whatever, it was so big, and you had to make the right turns. Didn't you love it when you'd have to go through floor seating and make a nice right and left turn?
That's what I'm saying. It was just really difficult to get in and out of. So it reminded me. I only worked there a couple times, but it reminded me of the old Richmond Fairgrounds.
Okay.
Where Orton, where the big old Bob Senior, not Bobby Jr. Senior, but Bob the Big O, and Dean Malenko's dad, Boris, Great Malenko, got stabbed and hit with a baseball bat. It was terrible.
Wow.
Wrestling George and Sandy Scott. You probably heard that story, right, Jim? And Homer Odell came out shooting his guns in the air and all that. It was... But anyway, Richmond was very similar to that. People
you know what, Rick? Now, you've just run off and left every wrestler under 30 because their scariest part about returning to the locker room from the ring is whether Vince is going to yell at them when they get back, right?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And it used to be when you went to the ring, you would plan your exit just in case shit got hairy. Exactly, okay, I remember I got to go through here. This is going to look bad. Is there a shortcut?
Yeah. No, I know. It was a different time, you know, but you know, I gotta. In all fairness, I just gotta say that I'm actually happy for the guys. You know, they didn't live the times and they didn't experience what we did, but it's a much safer environment, and and Vince pays the bills, the medical bills now, and you know, I mean,
you know, there's one part about today's wrestling that's more dangerous than it was in our day, and that's Twitter and a camera on every phone and social media.
Oh, exactly.
If we'd had cell phones, would anybody have been married longer than 3 weeks?
No, Jim. If they had cell phones, I wouldn't have not only been married, I'd been in jail.
You'd be a 16-time world marrier.
But no, not even married.
No,
just,
he'd be in a. We would all been able to be convicted of something.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know what in each specific case, but every wrestler in the world would have gone to prison with evidence that is able to be procured today by just what people are walking around with in their pocket.
Yeah, Jim, we clearly we got out and the time was right.
Hey, we said before we went on the air, we said we were going to tell one story. My stories with you always involved me trying to get you to leave somewhere.
I know, exactly.
Either try to get you to leave WCW and come work for Smoky Mountain, or try to get you to go to the WWE, or try to get you to leave there, come by, or whatever. But in 1997, this was my favorite, when you were in the car circling the Greensboro Coliseum on the WWF pay-per-view night, and Vince was I was on the phone with you, and the lawyer was on the phone with you, and we couldn't get the lawyer to agree to let you come inside the building.
Yeah, that was it, because I was going to. What they were going to do, and it was Jim's idea, it went to Vince. I was going to come and sit down and bring my son Reed,
right,
who had just won the AAU Nationals. And Jim Ross was going to get up and say, I was going to sit in the front row, right? And Jim Ross was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, this is if I remember right. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have with us a special guest, a champion.
Yeah.
Great wrestling champion.
What's that?
A great wrestling champion.
A great wrestling champion, and they were going to walk over and congratulate Reed.
That's awesome.
So he was all excited about doing that. Yeah. No, it's a very
the shot
cool.
was going to be, because at the time Rick was with WCW, but that was one of those
they weren't paying me.
Eric.
Remember, I sat a year without a paycheck, because the minute I cashed a paycheck, that recognized the fact that I had a contract. It was the Bischoff stuff.
And basically, I wanted that shot to be. Everybody obviously in the Greensboro Coliseum, when he came in and sat down in the front row during the first match, the people would have blown sky high.
Absolutely.
And then for Jim Ross to say, we have a great wrestling champion in the front row, we'd like to congratulate him, go over and interview Reed, and Rick's just sitting there and never says a word.
Yeah.
The whole thing. It was the greatest appearance of all time.
Yeah, no, I would have died for that moment. But
and who poo-pooed it? Who shot that down?
Jerry McDivitt and John Taylor.
Okay.
But there's always attorneys involved.
Yeah, well, at that point, it was like, it'd be like, what happened is they kept paying me, and I didn't have a contract. Right. But if I cashed a check, I went like 11 months without cashing a check, okay? That's before I was married. I was only married twice, and so I had enough money in reserve. Right now, I got to borrow $5 to pay the coat check girl to get out of CBS today from Conrad. No, things are good, to be honest with you. I'm doing great, but no, it's just one of those deals, because I was dying to do it. Right, I wanted to stick it up their butt. But the other side of the story too is, Jim, is Arn and all those guys wanted me to come back to WCW. I was already torn. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
no, I understand. Believe me.
Huh?
I understand. Believe me.
Yeah. I mean, my friends were there. I mean, I had friends at WWE too, but my friends were there. So actually, John Taylor gave me good advice, which my other attorney hated. He said, "Hey, you can sit home," because I would have gotten rich. So I sued them back, as you know, right? Mm-hmm. And because, as Jim will tell you, Bischoff got up at a meeting in front of 75 people and said, "I'm going to break Ric Flair, going to break his family and teach him not." I mean, which a vice president of a company like that can't do.
Right.
So I would have gotten rich beyond belief, but I probably waited 5 years to get the money. But everybody that sues Turner got paid, correct, Jim?
Yeah, I think Howie, the mailroom guy, is living in the Bahamas now because of a lawsuit against Turner.
Yeah, how about Sonny Ono?
Yeah, Hardbody Harrison, all those guys.
Yeah, all those guys. Sonny Ono sued him. The guy that the car dealer from Iowa, Eric's best friend. Turner rolled on Iowa.
Well, and what about the guy that is now serving life in prison for sexual slavery, Hardbody Harrison?
I know.
They sued him basically saying that they were basically appeared to be or presented as racial stereotypes and or ineffective and et cetera, and that was everybody on the roster in WCW. They were all presented as ineffective. So WCW should have sued all of them for impersonating wrestling personalities.
That's hilarious. So, Jim, when did you first come to the Mid-Atlantic area and work for the Crockett's, and how did that all come about?
I recruited him, man.
In large part due to Nate, because he had seen us, me and the Midnight Express, in Louisiana, obviously, as he just said, and then we went to Dallas because we wanted to come to the Carolinas then, but Watts wanted us to go to Dallas because he was going to trade talent with Fritz, and then they got mad at each other, and Watts would be running the Superdome, and we'd be in the rodeo arena in Brownsville, Texas. But Rick had put a good word in for us, and you know, had sold us on coming. Dennis Convery always wanted to come anyway because he had seen the Carolina territory years before when he just was like a rookie referee in the business, and he always wanted to go and had told us how great it was. And then when Dusty came in and worked with us in Louisiana for Watts, you know, we were fortunate because we had Rick and Dusty both on our side. So it was like Crockett couldn't say no.
Yeah, well, why would he? I mean, and then on top of that, when they came, then came the Rock and Roll.
Right.
So they brought not only a phenomenal tag team, and the heels are always. And I mean, I'm not. This is not against anybody that's been a babyface, but heels make the business roll.
Yes.
That's just the way it is. So if you got some great heels, you can find babyfaces, but they got a great babyface team in Ricky and Robert too, the Rock and Roll Express. But if they hadn't come, Jim and Midnight Express, Bobby and Dennis could have found somebody else to work with. So, but it worked out great.
We would have only done really good instead of great.